Hi there, my name is Kara McIver and I am a registered dietitian, and I focus on helping young and middle-aged adults reduce their risk of developing chronic diseases, things like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. So welcome back to my channel, and today we are going to talk about 5 things you can do in your 20s to set yourself up for long-term health success. Now, I am just a couple of days away from turning 34. I will be 34 on May 1st. And I'll tell you, I really did not start doing a lot of the healthy habits that are in my life today until I was in my mid or even late 20s. So if you're in your 20s, and you are not a perfect eater, or you haven't been a perfect eater to this point, and you're thinking, man, folks in my life have these conditions, these diseases that I don't want to develop, but maybe it's too late and I am just destined to develop diabetes or destined to also have heart disease. I am here to tell you, you still have plenty of time to reduce your risk or extend the health span of your life. So push those chronic diseases off until you are later in life, rather than just accepting that you're gonna develop them, earlier in life. Your 20s is an absolutely perfect time to start getting healthy. So let's get into it. I am going to talk about my five things that you can do in your 20s to reduce your risk of chronic diseases. My first recommendation for your 20s is to get in the habit or stay in the habit of eating regularly throughout the day. So in my day job, I am the registered dietitian for the residential dining program at a university. And one of the things that I see most often with our college students and with other folks in their 20s is they are skipping meals. Most often, that is breakfast. They may be having like a coffee or an energy drink, something like that, first thing in the morning when they wake up, but they are not sitting down or eating a proper breakfast. Not that you have to necessarily be sitting down for a proper breakfast, but they're not eating anything in the morning. They're skipping that first meal. I really don't recommend this. So research is mixed around weight and breakfast eaters, right? There's a lot of different reasons for that, but I will say, in my experience as a registered dietitian, I have found that folks who skip breakfast tend to have a more difficult time maintaining a healthy body weight. Now, we're going to talk a lot on this channel about how weight is not a great metric of health. However, for someone in their 20s, a stable weight can be a really accessible health metric. You don't have to go to the doctor to track it. You don't have to get a blood draw, anything like that. Seeing stability in weight. Now, I'm not saying that any number is the right number for anyone or everyone, but seeing your body weight stay mostly stable can be a good sign in your 20s that things are on a healthy track. And eating breakfast tends to be one behavior that is correlated or linked with a stable body weight. Some folks are eating breakfast, but then they eat a really small lunch, or they skip lunch altogether because they're busy at work, they have a lot going on in the middle of the day, and so they skip that midday meal. Skipping meals means later in the day, we are going to be even hungrier. We are going to go into our next meal or later in the day behind on calories for the day. And what this tends to mean is when we do eat, we eat foods that are higher in calories, lower in quality, which means they're not giving you a lot of nutrients for the actual food that you're eating. You're really just getting those calories, and you're not getting the other vitamins, minerals, fiber, water, those sorts of things that actually keep us healthy. When we're really hungry, we also tend to eat faster. And by eating faster, we don't quite feel when we get full. And so because we're eating higher calorie foods and we're eating faster, we may not be paying as much attention to our fullness cues. We tend to overeat when we have skipped a meal earlier in the day because we are so hungry when we actually do let ourselves eat. If you are the type of person that find you have no control around food, at a certain time of day, especially like mid-afternoon or right before bed, those are really good signs that you are not eating enough earlier in the day. What I recommend to most folks is eating on purpose, or being more intentional about eating rather than eating on accident. What I mean by that is make sure that you are eating breakfast. Make sure that you are eating lunch. That will set you up for success later in the day because you won't be so behind on calories that you then binge later in the day. Most of our energy expenditure, or most of the calories we burn in a day, actually comes from just being alive. So if you've ever had the thought like, oh, I'm gonna work out in the afternoon, so I don't really need to eat breakfast in the morning, that's counterintuitive to what's actually going on in our body. You are burning most of the energy that you will burn in a day just by being awake and alive using your brain. So you need to start fueling yourself first thing in the morning and keep fueling yourself at regular intervals throughout the day. So step 1, don't skip meals. Eat regularly in your 20s. So tip number 2 is to try as many foods and as many preparations as you can in your 20s. There is research that suggests if you try it by 25, you are more likely to find a food acceptable. Ultimately, I want you to be trying more fruits, more vegetables, more whole grains, things like that, because I want you to get in the habit of eating more fiber. Fiber is a really important nutrient for our health in a lot of different ways. It can help maintain our body weight, again, a stable body weight, because when we eat it, we tend to feel fuller from a meal for longer. So we don't need to eat again. Fiber also slows down our digestion of carbohydrates. So it helps us maintain better blood glucose control, which in the long run will help reduce your risk of type 2 diabetes. Fiber also plays a big role in maintaining our blood cholesterol levels, which means over the long run, you can reduce your risk of high cholesterol and heart disease. Fiber also keeps our digestive tract clean, so it will help you reduce the risk of certain types of cancer, like colon cancer, and then also things like diverticulitis, diverticulosis. Fiber is also a very important component of gut health, and we're also finding it can also play a role in our mental health, our mood, anxiety, depression, things like that as well. Most Americans are only getting about 1/3 to 1/2 of the amount of fiber that they're supposed to get in a day. And for a lot of people, this is because they just don't enjoy foods that are high in fiber, or they don't enjoy like the way they've had them prepared in the past. So foods that tend to be high in fiber are fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, lentils, foods like that. Carbohydrates. I know I did not eat a green vegetable until I was about 25 years old. Now I eat green vegetables, all color vegetables, a lot more frequently, but I wish this is something that I had started earlier in my 20s. The way I got to the point where I eat these vegetables more often is I tried new preparations. And when you're in your 20s, it's a really good time to start trying new preparations of these different kinds of fruits, vegetables, whole grains. So, for instance, you don't lose any fiber, you don't lose any nutrition if you add a sauce to a vegetable or to a grain. You don't lose any nutrition if you add seasonings. You don't necessarily lose a lot of nutrition if you prepare them in different ways, meaning like if they're cooked or if they're raw. So you don't have to eat these foods as a salad. Maybe you don't like boiled Brussels sprouts. This is a pretty common example. In the past, it was really common to just boil Brussels sprouts and maybe put some butter and salt on them. And honestly, they're not very good that way. But if you take a Brussels sprout and you shave it really thin and put some Caesar dressing on it, it's a really cool, delicious way to make a Caesar salad and to eat your Brussels sprouts. You could roast your Brussels sprouts on a sheet pan with some bacon. You don't lose any of the nutrition from the Brussels sprouts by adding that bacon in, right? And it just gives it a nice crunch, gives it a nice flavor. So there are lots of different ways to prepare all these different fruits, veggies, whole grains, and maybe you'll find ways in your 20s that you enjoy them, that you can then continue to eat these foods that are higher in fiber to keep you nice and healthy, for decades to come. So that's my number 2 recommendation. Try new foods and new preparations as much as you can in your 20s, because you're more likely to actually stick with those foods for longer. Once you get into later decades, it gets harder and harder to try new things. If you are specifically interested in learning more about fiber, learning more about the 2 different kinds of fiber, what foods contain fiber, leave me a comment and I will add that to my list of post videos to make. And if you don't want to wait for that video, I actually created an ebook, and that is on my website. It's free. I will put the link to it down in the description of this video, so you could download that free fiber ebook right now. There's maybe a couple dozen recipes in there, including things you can make just in the microwave, things you can even get from fast food restaurants that are higher in fiber. And if you put any 3 recipes in that ebook together, you will actually hit the recommended fiber goals for the day. So again, that will be down in the description of this video if you want to download that ebook on fiber. All right, so my 3rd tip for how to get healthy in your 20s is actually to sleep longer and better. How much we sleep and how well we sleep actually plays a huge role in how we eat the next day. So if you don't get enough sleep, you're going to wake up fatigued. And if you are fatigued, your body is going to push you to find energy because it doesn't want to feel tired. You've probably experienced that, right? When you're not quite feeling like you got enough sleep last night, you tend to crave things that are really sugary or really high in calories. And that is because that is how we get energy. We are trying to make up for the fact that we did not get enough sleep last night. And when we are having these hormonal drives for calories, it makes it really difficult to eat those healthy, whole foods that we maybe would have chosen if we had gotten better sleep. Sleep also plays a huge role in how much and how intensely we exercise. Again, if you are not sleeping well, you are not going to have a lot of motivation to go get your workout in. So for a lot of folks, they are not getting the exercise they need simply because they're so tired because they didn't sleep well the night before. Now, there are probably thousands, if not millions, of videos here on YouTube from sleep experts about sleep specifically, but here are some tips from me about sleep duration and sleep quality. 1, try to get to bed and wake up the next day at about the same time. I know for a lot of folks in their 20s, weekdays and weekends tend to look drastically different. Try to minimize that difference as much as possible, right? Find a time where you can go to sleep and a time where you can wake up that can stay pretty stable most of the time. The next one is to make your bedroom cold. It is a biological signal in our body that it's cold, it's dark, it's time to go to sleep, and that still works for humans in today's day and age. If you can't make it cold in your room for some reason, if you take a cool, doesn't have to be cold, but a cool shower, that will bring your core body temperature down as well and kind of mimic that same cold room atmosphere, but it'll be your core body temperature instead, and that'll be a good signal that it's time to go to sleep. Now, the 3rd thing that you can do to improve your sleep, I know you've heard it a million times before, I'm gonna reiterate it, make it dark in your room. Now, the way to make it dark for most of us means turning off the TV, turning off the phone, turning off the iPad, and really shutting down for the night. Now, I know my partner stays up later than I do, so one way that I make it dark in my room is I actually sleep with an eye mask on, and so that can help as well. I just have a cheap one from Target. It only cost me a few bucks, and that is how I make the room really dark, and it just is an indicator to my body that it is time to fall asleep. So that can help you get the best sleep quality that you can possibly get, which will set you up for success tomorrow in terms of choosing foods that are on the healthier side, not so calorically dense, because you have enough energy already to start your day. And it'll also give you enough energy to be able to get to the gym or get whatever type of exercise in for your day that you enjoy. So that brings me to number 4, my next recommendation, which is to find a style of exercise that you enjoy. Now, notice I did not say do this type of exercise. I did not say you have to run or you have to walk or you have to do this. In your 20s, it is going to be most important to find a style of exercise that you enjoy enough that you're willing to make time for it most days for the rest of your life. Exercise is a huge component of long-term success and reducing your risk of chronic diseases. Exercise improves our cardiovascular health, so it reduces our risk of heart disease. Exercise is useful in maintaining a healthy and or stable body weight. Again, like we talked about, that stable body weight. And it's also a really effective way to manage our stress. We want to find exercise that we can do, that we can engage in for the rest of our lives. And we want to find a way to ritualize exercise in our days. What I mean by that is creating the habit of putting exercise into your routine. If you can set an exercise habit as an anchor point in most of your days, it will help you keep up that routine later in life. Exercise really only continues to work while you are doing it, right? So if you want to continue to get the benefits of exercise into your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, you need to continue to have exercise in your life into those decades. My recommendation is to stop doing exercise just because either you did it as a kid or because someone on the internet does it and you want your body to look like theirs, because inevitably you are going to get tired of that style of exercise. It's going to fall out of your routine. If you use your 20s to explore different ways to move your body, to get your heart rate up, to build muscle, to use those muscles, and then you find a way that really resonates, that makes you excited to do it most days, then you will be better off into later decades because you have this exercise style that you really enjoy. You might just meet some friends doing that style of exercise as well. For me personally, I started CrossFit in my 20s and I made some of my best, longest term friends in my CrossFit gym. And then when I moved to a new city, because I got into graduate school, I knew the first place I could go to make new friends in my new city was my local CrossFit gym. So number 4 recommendation is to find a style of exercise that you actually enjoy. 5th recommendation is to avoid binge drinking. Now, I tried to make all of my recommendations positives, like do this rather than don't do this. But when it comes to alcohol, I have to say it, don't binge drink or reduce the amount of alcohol that you are drinking overall. Now, binge drinking is defined as 5 or more drinks in one sitting for males or 4 or more drinks in one sitting for females. Now, I know in my 20s, I definitely could put away 4 drinks in an evening pretty easily, especially when you consider what is actually one standard drink. I'll put an image here of what one standard drink actually looks like. Most of the time when we're drinking, we're getting more than one standard drink at any given moment. Now, binge drinking is common and it is normalized, but it is not. 21% of people in the US aged 18 to 24 binge drink, and 25% of people aged 25 to 34 binge drink. So, like I said, very common, but very detrimental to our health. Let me tell you a story of how a habit of binge drinking can form. I went to Purdue University as an undergraduate, and at Purdue, we had this tradition called Breakfast Club. Breakfast Club is during the football season when we have home games at Purdue. The bars open at like 7 a.m. and we all wear costumes and we go to the bars at 7 a.m. and we start drinking until the game starts at noon. So Saturday mornings, several weeks every fall, we are binge drinking in costume. Well, then I graduated from college and I moved to Washington, D.C., and we didn't have Breakfast Club anymore, but we had brunch. bottomless brunch, in fact. So I continued the tradition of taking Saturday mornings to go have several drinks, right? Binge drinking. And I did this, from when I turned 21, not a day before, right? Until I was in my mid-20s. So long-term binge drinking is associated with higher risk for things like high blood pressure, stroke, heart disease, and liver disease, which can cause all kinds of downstream problems. Then it's also associated with higher risk for breast cancer, throat cancer, liver cancer, colon cancer, mouth cancer, and cancer of the esophagus. One thing you can do to reduce your risk of these chronic diseases and others is to avoid binge drinking. Now, there are some other risks, shorter term risks, that come with drinking or binge drinking as well. One, it really reduces the quality of your sleep. So yes, after a night of drinking, it may feel like you just fall into bed and pass out because you're so tired, but that quality of sleep you're getting is actually pretty poor. Also, when we're drinking, we tend to make food decisions that we wouldn't make otherwise, right? So how easy is it after a few drinks to get, a big plate of nachos or a really big slice of pizza, something like that. So we just tend to eat more because we've been drinking, which can also lead to poor diet quality, poor choices when it comes to our nutrition as well. So I also have a post on my Instagram about my 5 favorite non-alcoholic beers. There are a ton of good non-alcoholic beers that exist today. There's non-alcoholic wine, there are non-alcoholic spirits. These are all new products that you can try that are gonna allow you to have a drink in your hand, go out, be social with your friends, without necessarily having the alcohol, that can help you manage how much you're actually drinking in any one setting. So that has been my 5 nutrition tips. So that has been my 5 ways to improve your health in your 20s. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe to my channel. There will be a lot more tips and tricks, a lot more specifics on things that you can do to improve your health at any age. If you want to know anything specific, give me a comment down below and I will add it to my list of videos. Thanks for being here.